I found out that my husband was planning to have an affair with a woman from his company that works for another branch. He visits that branch twice a year. And she visits us twice a year. They have been flirting for 6 months and they were going to sleep together last Friday when she was here. I sent my husband a picture of me with new lingerie about an hour before her plane landed and he was supposed to pick her up. He had already told me he was working late and then going out with his colleagues for drinks and not to wait for him. I wrote that was his dessert after the lobster pasta I'm making. He loves lobster pasta. He was home within the hour. When we were together he said he was glad he chose to come home. Instead of working, you mean? I should hope so. Yeah, I mean of course, he said. I don't have the energy to confront him or tell him that I know. I don't want to hear excuses and apologies. The lease is in his name because I moved into his apartment when we got married and we still haven't found our home that we're saving for. So I don't need to worry about that. Our savings and joint accounts are easy to access and divide and I can do that the day before leave. I have found a subcontract today on an apartment for 12 months. If I get picked I can move October 1st already. Then I will serve him the papers and tell him the reason is that I'm bored with our relationship and I have fallen out of love. I think it's better that way. Update 1. I have just signed a sublease. I'm leaving my husband at the end of the month. Hi everyone. I hope you remember B. Before diving into my boring life, I want to ask you who reached out and asked for my recipe for my lobster pasta. How was it? Please share your dishes with me, smiley face. I have now signed the lease. It is a sublease with 12 months then month to month afterwards until the owner can sell his apartment. I'm so happy that I have found it. I feel like I'm born again. I have felt nothing but pain and despair for weeks. Now I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I'm still resolute to just leave and not tell him the reason why. I think this is the only way I can cope with this pain without losing my mind or my dignity. Many asked how that would make me look. Honestly, I don't care. Those who love me unconditionally, and those who judge me, is their opinion really worth it? Update 2. Filed for divorce. First night in my apartment. I have been on high drive this weekend. No moving on Sundays, but I was fortunate to get the keys Thursday. I have been discreetly packing my clothes and yesterday, Friday, the moving truck came and took all my stuff and my furniture that I bought to my new place. I changed my address to my parents because I don't want my husband to know my new address if he Googled it. When I was in my new apartment it looked gloomy and so tiny. I just broke down crying. Like I have postponed my tears and now I could finally feel safe to be vulnerable. Around dinner my husband started bombarding my phone because I left him a note that I was done with our marriage and filed for divorce. My plan was to never speak to him again, but today after a million messages and missed calls I folded and answered him. He was very confused and in total panic, but I just kept saying that I wasn't in love with him anymore and that I was bored in our marriage. He was confused and begged me to come home and explain. Then he started trying to find other solutions. Maybe I was bored with my job or with our apartment. Maybe we could move and start anew somewhere else. I couldn't hold my tongue and just said, yeah, maybe we can move to city where the other woman lives. That would be very convenient for you. He was silent for a second then asked what I meant. You know, because the main office is there and you have better chances to advance in your career? Silent again. Then he said, listen, I don't care about my career now. I care about you. I love you and I can't lose you. He will do anything to make me happy. I said the only thing was that he left me alone and understood that it is over because the sooner he realized it was over the better. I hung up. I probably need a new phone number because I don't trust myself not answering him again. I was so disappointed in myself for talking to him when I decided I didn't. My parents-in-law have called and wanted an explanation and I just said that I wasn't in love anymore and wanted an out. They're both confused. All in all it is better than them knowing the real reasons. I'd rather have them confused than sorry for me or worse try to explain his behavior and ask me to forgive him. I'm way better this way. I don't think there's a need for lawyers. We don't own anything together and we don't have children. I have already taken my half of the savings etc. and I never stood on the lease of his apartment. I see no reason to have lawyers. I already sent my divorce papers to court and with or without his signature I will be divorced, in 6 months if he signs 2, in 1 to 2 years if he refuses to sign, and I submit a new application every 6 months. Now on to the next story. Story 2. I loved her so much, yet she wanted divorce and half of everything I owned. They say you never forget your first love, mainly because of the fact that they are the first love of your life and all, but mine was not this, or such was not the case for me. I had always known that the legal system has never been in favor of the men in cases of divorce, but this time, I guess you could say that something has at least changed. I have been married to my wife, Helen, for the past 7 years, and over the course of our marriage, there are a lot of things I have gotten to realize, right up until the end of our marriage, about a year ago. My name is Alex, the first son of my father, and the current head of my family. I have been the only child of my parents for as far back as I can remember, but all of these changed when they both decided they wanted to try again, for another child, as my mother kept on clamoring, pestering and dragging my father for another child, for she had always preferred a female child and I was the only child she had gotten from him in the past few years. Finally my mother got her wishes and prayers answered, for it did not take too much time for her to realize that she was already pregnant. It was indeed great news for our family, as this was the one thing my mother had been praying for quite a while. The time spent during her pregnancy soon flew past us like the wind, as before we knew it, close to 6 months had gone by. But I guess the only person that truly noticed the time lapse between when we first found out about mother's pregnancy, and 6 months into the pregnancy, was my father, as he was the one that shouldered the responsibility of taking full care of my mother, the entire time. One would think that this was my mother's first birth, mainly because of how my dad just could not help but over-pamper her, and cater for her every need, making sure that she does not need to do anything during this time. My mom and dad had already agreed beforehand, not to know the sex of the baby until the day they would meet the baby. The day soon came, as 3 months also came and went like the passing wind. I can remember the day my little sister was born. It was a Tuesday. My dad had to rush my mom down to the hospital. When he saw that her water had broken, my dad took me along, as there was nobody that could stay with me back at home if he were to leave me behind, and if he had done so, there was every possibility that he was not going to be back home that very day. Anyways, this was my first experience with hospitals. I was not comfortable with the entire environment, but I had to bear with it as this was the birth of my little sibling at the time, and I could not miss it for anything at all in the world. My younger sister came into this world as at 11:31 that very day, which was on the 21st of November. After my sister had been born, I don't know why I was feeling this way, but I just felt this overwhelming surge of emotions. She felt so small and defenseless that I had no other option than to try and protect her to the best of my abilities. I guess you could call this the instinctive big brother feeling or sense of responsibility. And I can most definitely assure you that this feeling did not fade or go away even in the slightest, even after she had grown up a bit. There were even some moments, when she was about 3 years, and both my parents had important meetings to attend to outside the state, and they just could not leave the both of us alone in the house for that long a time all while leaving on their trip, and so they decided to hire a babysitter to take care of us for the main time while they were gone, and also a house sitter, to take care of the house too. I had no knowledge of this at the time, right up until the very day before they were planning on leaving. When I asked them when they were planning on leaving, and when they had planned on coming back, they just told me not to worry, as they had already made preparations as to our care while they were gone. And when they said that they were going to hire both a babysitter and a caretaker for the house, I just openly suggested that they leave the care of my sister to me, as I felt I was capable enough to take care of myself. Alongside my sister, I made sure to assure both my parents that I was capable enough to take care of myself before taking care of my sister. This was not too hard, seeing as I was already way past the legal age of an adult, and also old enough to assume responsibility. I tried to convince my parents the best way I could, in order for me to be able to show them how responsible I can be for the future. After much convincing, they finally agreed to let me babysit my sister while they were gone, in and on the condition that my grandmother, Helen, would occasionally visit and check up on us, in their absence. I immediately agreed to this, as I was ready to agree to any of their terms. To cut the long story short, I was put in charge of my little sister for the entire period my parents left the house, and as agreed, my grandmother, Helen, occasionally visited from time to time, all just to keep us company, and check up on us for my parents and all. Before we knew it, the span or period of time that they had initially planned to leave for had gone by in a flash, and soon after, the pre-agreed upon date of return came and they came back home. What I wanted to bring out of this little side story of mine was the fact that I already have a little sister of my own, and I would do next to anything to protect and take care of her, even in the absence of both my parents. Now, this would bring us to the main aspect or focus of my story, which is the story of myself, and now ex-wife, Helen. And yes, I know what you might be thinking now. Yeah, my now ex-wife has the exact same name as my grandmother, and yes, that was one of the things about Helen that intrigued and caught my attention when I first met her. Helen's and my story go way back to when we first met each other back in high school. Helen was the leader of the school's debate team, and myself, on the other hand, was just a member of the school's debate team. I really was not interested in any extracurricular activity the school had to offer, but it was a compulsory activity that each and every student must partake in order to complete the required amount of credits and merits required to graduate. I just picked the debate team because we were promised that we were not going to be forced to do what we did not want to, and that they were just looking for students to fill up the total count of students required to keep a club active in the school. My friends and went along with them and registered on the debate club, and we would occasionally go for meetings, but we would just stay in the back of the classroom, since we had no intentions of being active on the group. However, one very day, something interesting happened that really caught my eye. So ever since we had registered for the school's debate team, we had apparently never seen the club's leader, or president, until the day the team was preparing for an inter-school completion in our region, and the leader of the debate team had to be present, so as to organize the entire affairs of the team and prepare them, ahead of the upcoming competition and all. This proved to be quite an issue at the time, mainly because the debate team, which originally did not have enough members to keep them active in the eyes of the school, were a member short, and if they were not able to meet the number count, they had to drop out of the registration process. I overheard them discuss this while I was present in one of their meetings, and I had initially planned not to interfere, as I was not even interested in anything they were doing in the club. But the moment I saw her, the leader and president of the club, Helen, I was awestruck. I just stood there as I stared at her. She was truly the embodiment of beauty itself. I could not believe that there was someone as beautiful as her in all my time in that school. I do not even know what got to my head, but at that very moment, I had all the motivation in the world to work, and then, I just blurted out, that I could fill in the empty slot that was available. The moment I said this, every single member of the team just turned over and looked at me. They were shocked by what I had just said, but Helen was even more in awe than the rest of her team, because, apparently, she had already had a preconceived idea of who I was, and my role as just a fill-in among the members of the club. She took me aside, as she asked me a series of questions, all educational based, and then she began questioning me, so as to know whether or not I had the experience and qualifications to do this. As I was answering all of her questions, I was just staring straight into her eyes, because she had the most beautiful set of eyes. Hers had a light blue hue, almost royal blue, and then she was just the perfect height, she spoke beautifully, and lastly, she was the right amount of intelligent. Talking to her felt like a dream, one that I did not want to end. But before I knew it, she had signaled to me, trying to tell me that she was done with the questions, and that she thought I was ready to join the team, but she would like to drill me a bit, so that I can get a better understanding of how they operated on the team. I just went with whatever it was that she had in mind. Long story short, she organized after-school tutorial at her place for every member of the team, and after about a month of practicing and preparations, the D-Day for the completion came, and to our school's greatest surprise, we placed first runner-up in the entire competition, after winning our regionals and proceeding to the state's championship, and then to the finals. This was like a dream come true for Helen, and seeing her so joyous really made me feel good and proud of myself. Throughout the entire time of the championship, Helen and myself got really close, so close in fact that we were almost intimate with each other the day we traveled for the finals. But as things got heated, she stopped me, saying that she wanted to really focus on the finals, as she thought I would be a distraction at the time and all. I felt down and I guess she noticed this. Then she tried to cheer me up by saying, when we were done with the tournament, she would say yes to any question I had to ask her. I knew that this was her way of indirectly asking me when I had planned to ask her to be my girlfriend that her answer would be yes. That was the mutual agreement we both came to. And this would not be affected by the outcome of our tournament. Although, we were all down because we placed second in the entire country, knowing that you got silver, when you could have gotten gold, is a very painful experience. Anyways, after the tournament, Helen and I finally became official, and although we went through some rough patches, we were each other's perfect match. At some point people soon began considering and saying things about how we would not last as a couple, but I guess we made them eat their words at our wedding a few years after we had graduated from college. Now here is where things start to get really interesting. Right after we were married, for about the next 3 years, we were really living the married life. As young adults, we initially had not planned to have any kids as we were planning on enjoying our lives to the fullest and doing things we had always wanted to do, seeing as the both of us were already producing steady incomes for ourselves, and even if we wanted to retire, we had more than enough in both our separate and joint savings, and also our families were there for us too. And so about 4 years into our marriage, we decided to take a break from everything and everybody, and then we just went on vacations. Vacations that ranged from beaches around the world, to just notable and tourist-friendly places in the world. In our 5th year of marriage, we finally decided to come back home, settle down, and finally have a family of our own, as Helen had told me that she was ready for one now. Right before our 6th year anniversary as husband and wife, and about 9 years of being couples, we found out that she was pregnant and we were expecting a baby girl. This was really good news for the both of us, and also for our families, and this was the turning point of our relationship I guess, because at this point, she absolutely changed. It was around this time, that my sister, had decided to visit me, after having some issues in school, and I, without hesitation, welcomed her into my house, as she needed a place to stay, and there was no way I would be alive and available, and my sister would be out there in need of assistance. And as I invited my sister in, Helen had a problem with it, as she tried to go against the fact that I brought my sister into the house without her consent and knowledge. I thought this was odd of her, seeing as she was my immediate and only younger sister and all. She tried to go against my decision, by saying she did not want her in the house, and I told her that I could not let my sister stay elsewhere, when we had some free rooms available in the house. She tried to send her away, but I forbade her from doing so, and this was where our very first and last dispute arose from. When I told her that, she had no right to send my sister away, and that I was sorry I did not tell her earlier on that she was coming, because this was an emergency and all, she just went silent and did not say another word. Things had gotten so heated between the both of us that I had to leave her for the evening. And then what happened the next morning really shocked me. As I was ready to apologize and compromise, I found out that she had left the house out of annoyance and she had booked a flight out of the country. She said she did not want to have anything to do with me again, as I had already made my decision, by choosing my sister's side, and undermining her view. Also, she took all the money we had in both our joint accounts, and she left me with basically nothing. I did not even know how to feel at the time. I was surprised she could do something like this, but I was even more surprised that she took everything we both had and left, taking my unborn 8-month-old baby girl. I was broken for the next 3 weeks, as I did not eat anything at all for days, only until when my sister forced me to. And after a while, she came with good news that she had found a lawyer to help us out with my case. I was reluctant at first, until I saw a letter from Helen, filing for divorce and requesting for more than half of everything I had left. She was basically determined to take everything I owned. This was where I knew there was no going back again. I spoke with the lawyer my sister introduced me to, and we also filed our case. After giving him the entire details of our case and how she left with next to everything we both owned, my lawyer told me not to worry, as he had handled cases like this, and this was a really minor one. I just sat back and watched him work his magic. After endless court sessions, apparently the court ruled in her favor of divorce in her case, and we were officially divorced, but seeing as she had more assets than I did, she was the one charged with remitting half to me. And as for my case, the court ruled that she was to reimburse me back the entire money she took from the joint accounts, and she was to serve about 1.5 years of jail time, which was after she had given birth to my baby girl, and she was also to hand over the baby to me right after birth, as the court had judged that she would not be the perfect person to be in charge of handling the baby. While court passed its final verdict, although I still loved her, the look she had in her eyes meant that I had gotten back at her for what she had done to me, and I was glad.